Hello and welcome to the comic catch-up challenge. What the hell does that mean? All it means is for the next few weeks, I'm gonna be reading comics that I need to catch up on, and I'm making content out of that to motivate me to actually read the comics instead of just letting them pile up. I'm like almost 2 months behind on comics right now. So yeah. We're gonna set a few ground rules and then we're gonna get into the first review. So this is sort of similar to No Break November. I'm not releasing a video every single day, but I am internally forcing some rules upon me. There are a few, there's not many. The first one being that I have to read at least 5 comics every day. So that's just 5 from my stack of back issues that I have to get through. And every 2 days, I have to review at least one of those comics. So what that's allowing me to do is having, basically every 2 days, having a pool of 10 issues to form some review out of. And that's playing into another rule, which is don't force reviews. That's something that I hated about the show with reviews format way back when I was like, okay, gotta review 3 comics every week, is sometimes I would have nothing to say and it would end up just being an episode where I'm like, this was good, this was also good, this was all right, and that's like the entire video, and I had like no interesting points to say. And that might happen within the next few weeks, but hey, there's a lot more room for error. And the biggest difference between this challenge and the No Break November challenge is that I am making stockpiling videos, like filming them in succession, totally fine. And that's mostly just because I don't want, like, I know that I can film and produce and upload a video every day. That's not the point of this challenge. The point of this challenge is to use the creation of content as a motivating factor for me to get caught up on comics. That's the point of this challenge. So essentially what it boils down to is every 2 days will be a filming day. Between those days, I will have read up to 10 comics, or more than 10 or more comics, and I will have some notes ready for me to film. So I will sit down, I will turn the camera on. I've set it up in a way where it's really easy for me to just start and go, and then I'll just film my words saying. Anyway, you get the point. For the next few weeks, you're going to be getting a lot of comic reviews. So yeah, we're back to Auram's comics temporarily. Alright, so now for the reason that you probably clicked on this video, we're going to talk about Spider-Geddon at great length. For those that don't know, Spider-Geddon is the sequel comic to the 2014 crossover with all the Spider-Man characters called Spider-Verse. And that's basically all you need to know. If you read Spider-Verse, this is almost a direct sequel to it. So yeah, the Inheritors, Energy Vampires, we got all them. We're dealing with that again. So yeah. Before I talk about the main book, I want to clarify some bias here. Just a quick disclaimer. The totem concept is something that is heavily intertwined with the Inheritors, that being that every Spider character is a totem in this multiversal mystical web, and Peter Parker is very important on that. I hate this concept. I think a lot of interesting things have been done with this concept, like Spider-Verse. I like Spider-Verse. As a at its core, I really hate the idea of a totem, and the whole like mystical angle that has been given to the Spider-Man mythos. I don't like it, so that's my bias. Also, I'm not just going to be talking about the main Spider-Geddon book. That's what we're going to talk about first. I read a couple of the tie-ins, so we're going to talk about those as well. So yeah. Let's talk about the main book first, though. So the main book, Spider-Geddon, it's 5 issues. Overall, it's fine. It's just another Spider event. Nothing like too insane or crazy happens in it, I feel. I mean, there's crazy stuff, but it's not like, you know, the Inheritors are going through, like, killing every Spider character like they were in Spider-Verse. We only have a few casualties this time, and it's not super new. It's just like, you know, it's the sequel to Spider-Verse. Did we need it? Probably not. At its best, it's an insanely convoluted way to set up a Superior Spider-Man ongoing, which I find hilarious in and of itself. And at its worst, it's another Marvel event that is plagued with unnecessary tie-ins and just feels very cash grabby. I will say though, my favorite part about this event is the fact that it is not centered around Peter Parker. In the original Spider-Verse, there was this huge sense of Peter Parker, 616 Peter, is the best one and everything revolves around him, which, I mean, they explained sort of because I guess he was like the first, or he's like a really strong totem or whatever, or he just has good leadership skills, but it made it feel more like a thing happening in Peter Parker's life as opposed to this great multiversal, like, world-ending war between these energy vampires and these mystical spider people, which this event feels more like that. Peter is sort of shoved off into his own tie-in, while Miles takes the forefront. Miles and Otto take the forefront in this event, which I think is just way better. It continues to hit the nail on Miles being his own character, and it sets this event apart from Peter Parker, because this is not about Peter Parker. This is about the Spider-Man mythos, which is so much bigger than Peter at this point. Talking about theming a little bit here, the plot of the event is almost exclusively caused by Otto's hubris, which is something that we saw a lot in Spider-Verse, which carries into this book, and, you know, is just a constant struggle that the superior Spider-Man has to deal with. And I really like that. I like the parallel between Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon with both things, sort of, both events, not being caused by Otto's hubris, but having that as a main theme is an interesting way to tie the two together. Also, with Otto being the cause of the entire event, it almost super cements that this is just a superior Spider-Man event disguised as a Spider-Man mythos event. But that's one conspiracy theory for another day. What's the opposite of a nitpick? Like a good pick? A nitpick, but for the greater good. I have a few of those. I just really liked the costumes that the Inheritors had when they first came out of their cloning tubes in Otto's San Francisco facility or whatever. They looked really neat. And I honestly thought that they were just gonna stay in those costumes instead of going back to their old medieval vampire outfits. I think that would have been super cool if they just hung out in those. It would have just set Spider-Geddon apart from Spider-Verse that much more. I mean, they stand apart very clearly on their own. Not on their own, but they stand apart as two very distinctly separate events. But I think this would have helped. Would have been cool to just see like a costume change. You could have sold more toys. I mean, you still can, because they did appear in a comic. No one's gonna complain. I don't know why you would be selling toys of the Inheritors, but no one's gonna stop you. Oh, also Spider-Man, who is the clear winner of this entire event. He's just the standout, the champ. If you don't know who Spider-Man is, he's a hive mind of spiders who thinks he's Peter Parker. Now it's time to talk about bad things about this event. Okay, my main issue with Spider-Geddon is that it's too big. It's too fucking big. And this is a criticism that I have about almost every Marvel event, is that the scale gets so large. And this is why I dropped Infinity Wars. After I caught up with Spider-Geddon, I was like, I can't. It's too much. And I just decided not to catch up on Infinity Wars. There's just so much going on. There are so many spider characters that you can't focus on all of them, and it sort of worked in Spider-Verse because there was just so much happening, but in this one, it's almost like they're trying to scale it down, but they still have the same amount of characters from Spider-Verse, so it's this weird dissonance where it's like, here's all these characters, also they all have tie-ins, and if you didn't read them, you might be a little bit confused. It's just too big. The events like these are always going to have a criticism from me of just, there's too much going on. Also, I think it's important to note that in most Marvel events, all of the characters are so different from each other in appearance and name and power set that it's a lot easier to understand what's going on. Like in Civil War II, you see that big splash page of everyone, you're like, okay, it's all a bunch of distinct characters. I can see their silhouettes and know who each one is. But then you look at like a splash page with a bunch of spider characters and half of them have the same color scheme, the same names, and the same powers. So it just really enunciates the fact that there's a lot going on and you're not going to understand it all. I will say though, despite there being so much going on in the set dressing and the amount of characters and just everything that's involved in this event, the main book is paced really well. These 5 issues are just solid in terms of pacing. It doesn't drag, it doesn't like go too fast for you really to understand what's going on. There is like, I think in issue 4, there's a few points where I was like, wait, what's happening? What are they doing now? But for the most part, Spider-Geddon on its own just works in terms of pacing. It it feels like you're going at the pace that you should be going. It doesn't drag, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Overall, Spider-Geddon is just a fun popcorn comic that you really can't get mad at. I mean, how do you get mad at just something that's fun? Like, we're not trying to get at any deeper meaning here, like trying to make you realize who you are. We just want to see a giant spider robot throw a sword through an energy vampire. There's nothing wrong with that. It's tie-in time! And here's a graphic. We're gonna talk about SpiderForce first. SpiderForce first. That sounds bad. We're talking about SpiderForce because Jessica Drew is in it, and Jessica Drew is my favorite superhero. Yep, this book isn't terrible. It details the events of like a ragtag team of spider characters. There's 4 of them. There's Jessica Drew, Kane, Ashley Barton from the Old Man Logan universe, and this new guy called Charlie. He goes by Spider Kid. He's a Peter Parker from a universe where I guess Uncle Ben was a real meanie, so it caused him to like dissociate from his family and change his name to Charlie, and then go by Spider Kid and beat up other kids, I guess. Anyway, the point is the 4 of them are going back to the irradiated world that the original Spider Army trapped the Inheritors in the first Spider-Verse event. They're going back there because the Inheritors' father, Soulless, his soul is trapped in a crystal, and that's Verna,
on
one of the
world,
Inheritors,
and Kane
has
had
15
go
minutes
back
in the
there.
irradiated
To
suit to ditch them, and it was a whole thing.
Is that the
Jess
world
was
that
really
Old Man
angry
Logan
because
lives
none of that matters if Jessica Drew was portrayed bad in this book. Luckily, she wasn't. She's fine. There's no red flags that pop up in my Jessica Drew brain with this book. She's portrayed. She feels like Spider-Woman. It's nothing incredible. Like there weren't any like this didn't get me excited to get back to Jessica Drew. It was just she showed up and did a thing. The book wasn't about her. She's like heavily portrayed on the 3rd cover, but it's not really about her. It's just as much about her as it is about Kane and this new Spider Kid, Charlie. Ashley Barton just kind of gets shoved off to the side, though, for some reason. The one thing that this book did do for me is kind of finally shove down my throat acceptance for the fact that Jessica Drew is a spider character. I don't have to like it, but I'm accepting it and understanding it. I mean, I've understood it for a while, but I just, like, logistically, she has been under the Spider Office banner for, like, 4 or 5 years now. In 2014, she moved from the Avengers office to the Spider office, which is why she's in all these Spider events, like the meta reason, that's why. But it just I hate it because even in the comic, they always go out of their way to make excuses that she's not quite a spider totem, like the Inheritors can't eat her because she has irradiated blood, and she's always needs a different reason other than just you're a spider character so you have to help. She always needs a different reason, like, you know, you're part of the Avengers so you gotta help, or you gotta set a good example for your son, that's the deal, or you're mentoring an actual spider totem so you gotta join. It's like in the plot she's not a spider character on like there is so much in canon that's making her not a spider character. But editorials like, no, she's a spider character. She's under the Spider Office. If Captain America was somehow one day put into the Spider Office, would he just be like Captain Spider suddenly and would never fuck with the Avengers again? That would never happen, but you see what I mean. Okay, moving on to Spectacular Spider-Man. This was a 3-issue tie-in, and hot damn. This is spicy. It's a good comic. This tie-in also marks the start of the new creative team for Spectacular Spider-Man, and you know what? I loved the Spectacular Spider-Man stuff that came before this. There was some stuff that dragged, but when it was good, it was good. And this book has me not worried at all. This new creative team is right out the gate, hitting it out of the park. I love this tie-in. This book just kind of has everything that I want in a tie-in and a comic in general. The art is beautiful. Peter Parker feels like Peter Parker. There are small little continuity nods to things that happen in other Spider-Man books that just make this feel more real, more cemented in the Marvel Universe. And it's not super detrimental to the main book's plot. You don't have to read this tie-in to understand what's going on in the main book, and vice versa. It's just good. It's just good comic. I don't know what else to say about this tie-in. It's just really good. If you don't know what's going on in it, it's just Peter Parker fighting Morlun. He fucked off. Both of them fucked off to just have their own little cage match in New York. And that's what this book is. And it's great. This was definitely my favorite part of the entire event, this tie-in. It's just good. So I'm glad Spider-Geddon exists solely because it gave us these 3 issues of Spectacular Spider-Man. Read them if you don't even have to read Spider-Geddon. It's just Spider-Man fighting Morlun because of some multiversal shit that's happening. You don't need to care about that. Read this. So the last tie-in I read was Ghost Spider. I read the first issue of Spider-Girls, but I didn't finish it because I realized it just wasn't really for me. I don't know much about those 3 characters, and it was mostly focusing on Annie Mae, who is from the Renew Your Vows universe, which I don't read Renew Your Vows, so I was like, Marvel releases like 20 books a week. I gotta start reading like only the shit I know I'm gonna like. So Ghost Spider, the new Ghost Spider book. Spider-Gwen, as people know if you watch this channel, I like Spider-Gwen a whole lot. Now she's called Ghost Spider. I flip-flop between those names in my head. But this is like where they're fully indoctrinating that name into the comics, Ghost Spider. It's only really been like mentioned once where she's like, Ghost Spider, I like that, and that's at the end of Spider-Geddon, but that's what this book is called. It's called Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider, which I guess they're like people don't know who Ghost Spider is, so we gotta put Spider-Gwen on top of it so that they will actually know, you know? This book is really interesting to me. It's in a very similar situation to the Spider-Woman tie-in that happened with the original Spider-Verse, where the first 4 issues of it were a direct tie-in to the event, and then from issue 5 onward it became its own book. That's exactly what's happening here. The first 4 issues of Ghost Spider tie directly into Spider-Geddon, and every issue after that, starting with issue 5, is just Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, back on Earth 65. So I'm excited to see where this goes, but what actually happened in the Ghost Spider tie-in? What's going on here? So the main thing you need to know about this book is that it takes place in an alternate universe, which is not crazy for Ghost Spider or Spider-Geddon, but it's like a new alternate universe. At the end of issue 2 of Spider-Geddon, I think, Gwen got like thrown into a different universe. I don't really remember exactly how it happened, but anyway, the point is she's in a new place, and I think that was a really smart way to start this new series as just a new, with a new creative team, because this new creative team isn't trying to mimic Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez's work, which is really smart because they were on the character for so long, they made the character into who she was. If these new dudes came along and were like, hey, we're gonna try and do exactly what they did, people would have scrutinized it more. They would have compared them immediately, like just direct comparison. But it's harder to do that here because she's being written and drawn by new people, and she is just like canonically in an entirely different place for the first 4 issues. But talking about the plot of the first 3 issues of the tie-in, the alternate universe that we're shown is actually really interesting. It is a Harry Osborn Spider-Man and a Gwen Stacy Green Goblin, but they're both heroes for a while. The plot is that Gwen, Harry dies and Gwen loses control and becomes just the Green Goblin, like the bad part of the Green Goblin, I guess, because she was like always on the edge or something. Anyway, the point is, Peter and Mary Jane are still around, which is something that we don't see a lot with these alternate universes. In the alternate universes where Peter Parker isn't a thing, where someone else is Spider-Man, usually Peter Parker and his supporting cast take a back seat. They're either dead, like in the case of Ghost Spider, or just not around, like they never were, or just, you know, they're hidden a corner somewhere. But in this plot, they are directly like supporting cast to Harry and Gwen, who are the superheroes, which I find really interesting, and is something that I feel like we don't see a lot with the alternate universe Spider-Man characters. So that's the first 3 issues. It's dealing with Gwen sort of trying to find her way back into the fight because her watch broke or something, and she gets a necklace constructed that allows her and only her to travel between alternate universes because the web of life is broken, because Norman Osborn from a different universe chopped it up. Also, Spider-Man was there, but he didn't. He's just a good little boy. He's just traveling the web of life. He's not a bad guy. But anyway, the 4th issue is an aftermath issue. It takes place after Spider-Geddon, and it's sort of like Spider-Geddon issue 6, or just like the end, like, you know, it is one of the few Spider-Geddon aftermath books, and it is really like heartbreakingly sad. It's essentially Gwen dealing with the deaths that happened in Spider-Geddon, and it sucks. Like, not it sucks to read, not like, it's not a bad book, it's a really good comic. It's just, you know, it made me cry a little bit, just a wee bit. It's a good book. I'm just excited to see where this Ghost Spider book goes after it breaks out of being a tie-in. Sort of Gwen's mission statement at the end of the tie-in is that she's just gonna stay on Earth 65 for a while, because she doesn't want to become a ghost story, which I think is eventually where Ghost Spider is gonna actually come from, not the sort of offhand remark in Spider-Geddon issue 5, because the plot of the 4th issue, something she deals with is that she's going to tell the families and the people that care about the spider people that died in Spider-Geddon that they're gone. And Gwen doesn't want to do that to her family and her friends. So she goes back to Earth 65 and she's like, look, I know I'm the one person who can protect the web of life right now, but I don't want to become a ghost story. So I'm going to go back to Earth 65 and just stay there for a while. And I think that's really pretty. That's really well done. It's good. It's a good reason to keep her on Earth 65. So there you go. That's my big, long Spider-Geddon review. Don't expect the rest of these comic catch-up challenge videos to be this long. I just kind of wanted to kick it off with a good, solid, like, I'm going to read 10 issues and review them. So that's what I did. That's Spider-Geddon. I was also going to review the first issue of Superior, but there's not much to say. So it hasn't quite tied into Spider-Geddon yet. They're doing something else, and then I think they're going to tie it into Spider-Geddon with the very obvious setup that they were doing with Norman Osborn and Spider-Man. Spider-Geddon. Buy it on eBay. Using code eBay. That's not a thing. Don't actually do that. Get out of my house!